name is Nate Kelly. I'm with the consulting firm, the Horsley Witten Group. We are here at the Yelle School today for a visioning forum. What we're trying to look at is issues around Norton Village Center, right where Library Square is. We want to think about issues related to how can people walk around more safely? How can they feel more at home in the center? How do we deal with issues of economic development and public transportation, bring those together to really make this more of a place, make it all that it can be, reach its full potential over the next 5, 10, maybe 20 years as we move forward. We're at the beginning of this process now. This is our first public forum. We do have a website, and I'll read it for you here, www.nortonmavillage.com. That's all one word, nortonmavillage.com. That's going to be our project website. We'll be posting baseline information, everything from traffic counts to zoning analyses to give you a sense of what's happening on the ground today. But more importantly, we're going to be posting surveys to get your ideas, your input, and then we'll be feeding it back. As we hear things, we'll let you know what other residents and business owners are saying as we reach a final vision. This vision is going to come together in almost a strategic plan where we'll be thinking about public improvements, capital improvements, zoning reform, economic incentives, grant money, all of those things that can really just either create physical improvements to the area or create better connections between properties, to pull it all together, to knit all the wonderful things that you have together in this area into a cohesive village center. Thanks for coming out this evening. It still is a nice day out there, or it looks undecided, but it's been holding out. So it's great to have your time on a nice day. We have had a rough spring, and I know people are anxious to get as much sun as possible, as much nice weather. But my name is Nate Kelly, and I'm with a consulting firm called the Horsley Witten Group. And one of the things that we do quite a bit of in our work as community planning consultants is we look at what we call village planning, village center planning. And Tabitha, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Tabitha Harkin. I'm the Director of Planning and Economic Development here with the town. I'm actually going to use the mic. Do I need this? Can everyone hear me? No. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Is that better? Yeah. I'm Tabitha Harkin. I'm the Director of Planning and Economic Development for the town of Norton. And why you're here tonight is because we have applied for and gotten a grant from the state, Executive Office of Environmental Affairs, to do a study of our village center. So this is entirely free to the town of Norton. This was a $50,000 grant that we got from the state, and Wheaton College and GATRA Bus also contributed funds to this study so that we could do this tonight and have a year-long study that looks at our village center and really explores what's going on there, what we could do better, how we can develop a vision and an implementation plan for the future that would benefit the town of Norton by bettering the traffic volumes that are going through that area, as we know, and also maybe incentivizing economic development in that area. So we've hired Horsley Witten and a fantastic team, and we're having a kickoff meeting tonight. And so, Nate, I'll pass it back to you.
Sure. So this idea of a village center, is there anybody, show of hands, does anybody think that they know of a place, have been to a place, like to visit a place that they would call a village center? Who knows of a place? Anybody? Where's your place?
Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, okay. Who else had their hands raised? Yes, sir.
Bristol, Rhode Island.
Bristol, Rhode Island, okay, yes.
Concord, Mass.
Concord, Mass.
I was going to say Concord, but Ross Square in Cranston, Rhode Island.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Westlake Village, California.
Westlake Village, California. So what is it about Westlake Village, California that makes you think that this is an example of a village center?
They've got you can walk anywhere within.
All right, so you can walk anywhere.
You can walk through green belts.
All right.
Where it's go behind properties, houses are back to back.
So you're off the street, you're walking on paths and other.
You want bicycle paths, walkways,
Okay.
green belts. You can walk to the shopping center, marketplace, everything like that. And then there are tree-lined boulevards. Of course, you don't have the space for that type of stuff here for the automobiles as well.
Okay.
It was designed as a walking type community back in 1965, and it was first built by the American Lion Corporation. And they did a similar project in Virginia, I forget the name.
Okay, so it's very connected. There's lots to do. What about Bristol? You said Bristol, right?
Yeah, sort of similar things, that there are reasons to go there. And there are a lot of things in close proximity, so it sort of builds a critical mass of, you know, people coming in, and restaurants, historical buildings, it's near the water.
Okay, great. So lots to see, lots to do. So that is really, you know, a lot of what was just shared is really what gets at the core of what we like to call a village center, right? So in New England, we have that aspect of history. So whether you're talking about Concord or these other places, where we're going to these sort of village areas, there's often a lot of history there to it, whether it's in the buildings, monuments, historic sites. There are trails, everything's very connected. There's lots to do. You don't really spend the day in your car, right? We call them a park once environment, fancy planner speak. So we drive up in our car at some point during the day, and we get out, we get to shop, we get to stroll, we get to stand by the water, we get to have a nice meal, and then we get to go home. All these things sort of wrapped up into one place. So what we're here to think about for Norton is, do we have a village center here? And if we do, how do we strengthen that? If you're shaking your head no, well then how do we get there? Because a lot of what I just talked about, there is here. We have some historic structures. This is sort of a center already of activity and commerce in the area. There's civic uses with the town hall, where you have sort of public safety, library. This is Library Square, right? So all of these things, we have the different elements, and how do we build that to bring that forward? How do people give me a show of hands, why do you come into the center of Norton? What places do you go to in the village center here? Anybody?
I live here.
Yes, sir. Hardware store. You live here?
I live here.
Fantastic. Who else?
Bank, hardware.
The bank, hardware, services. Who else? Yes, back there.
Town Common for when Santa comes with the kids.
Ah, I've seen the pictures. It's fantastic. Who else? Yes, ma'am.
Library.
Library. You? Post office. So all these civic service. Yes, you, sir.
I hope I'm not the only one with the brewery.
The brewery. You're the only one who. Fantastic. How many people would say that they get to the center, show of hands, by walking? Okay, we got a few. How many people would say that they get to the center by biking? Not one there. How many get to the center using the bus? No one here. Oh, we have one in the back, so a little undecided hand. How many people get to the center using an automobile? And keep your hands up if you enjoy that experience. All right. We've heard rumors, we've seen firsthand that there are some significant traffic issues in this area, so that's obviously one of the things that we're going to talk about. But we would like to ask you tonight, if traffic's sort of your number one, we're all pretty much aware of that, right? We're going to ask you to sort of stretch your imagination a little bit when we start talking about the things that we love about this area and the things that we want to see changed, and think about, really of a future where, this does maybe resemble more or feel more like those places you talked about when we first started this discussion. So what we're going to do now is we are going to ask you all to move a little bit. We've set up a number of tables in the back. You see where those giant writing pads are, those big post-it pads. And we're going to have a facilitated discussion. I'm going to go through it very quickly, but then your facilitator is going to explain it to you again what you're going to do. Six or so per pad. Why don't we then do? Yeah, let's do. How many total do we have?
We have about 30 people in the room.
30 people. So let's do 4 tables then. That'd be a good number if we do that. Those 4 over there.
7.5 people per table.
7.5 people. So, you think about it. Those of you who are the half people, choose carefully over there. Don't double up, please. We don't want that an even number. So here's what the exercise is going to look like. The first thing that we're going to ask you to do is we're going to ask you to describe what your beautiful future Norton Village Center looks like in the future. And we want you to do it in one word or phrase. So I'm giving you like a little time here to cheat and think about it. We're going to go around and we're going to record that. Then we're going to ask you 3 different questions. We're going to ask, what is it in Norton Village Center that if it was gone, if you woke up tomorrow and it was gone, it would just ruin it, right? You just can't do without this one thing. What do you love? What's this thing that you gotta have? Without it, Norton Village Center just wouldn't be Norton Village Center. That's the first question. Second question is going to be, what do you like, but with a little work or a little investment or a little thought, it could be better. We can elevate this element. So this is something that we want to strengthen, make it stronger, better. It's just not all that it can be right now. And then the third thing, you can see where this is going, right? Third thing is, what do you want to completely transform? Think of something in this center. The more tangible, the better. If you can point to it, if you can name it, if you can take a picture of it, that's really kind of what we're looking for. What's one thing that just really has to be changed? Or we get rid of it, or we just replace it, or we make it something completely different? That's going to be our third question. And then your facilitators will talk a little bit more how we're going to dig deeper into that third question a bit. Now, are there any questions about that movie? Yes, sir.
That could be any of those 3 rings?
That could be any of those 3 rings. So yes, for those of you, thank you. For those of you who had the opportunity to look at the gallery when you came in here, you'll notice that there were 3 concentric circles sort of coming out from the center. And we drew those circles basically on the thought that that's a comfortable walk for someone. Maybe that outer circle is someone a little bit more ambitious. But those are sort of 10, 15 minute walk sheds into the area. So that's really the study area that we're looking at. There's a whole mix of different kinds of properties here, whole different kinds of uses. We talked about the civic, the commercial, the residential. We have village center zoning in this area, which is really trying to encourage a mix of uses, sort of push us more towards this idea of a cohesive village. So there are a lot of different moving parts. Your facilitators can fill you in on that. I'll be moving from one table to another, so if there are other technical questions about the area, Joanne can certainly help. She's a native here and knows this area inside and out. So we'll be filling people in if they have technical questions, but otherwise, stay with your facilitator. We'll record these, and then at the end, we're going to report out, and I'll talk about what we're going to do with this information that you gave us tonight.
I'm going to say adaptive reuse for the library.
No one uses it because what could you do there?
So there's no programming that goes to the village center for special events or programs, right? In an ideal world. All right. Kind of form a little bit of consensus, and then we're going to move on to the next question. But I want to make sure.
I think it's good, and I think as we keep going through these questions, we can refer back to this if we need to help reinforce or keep our consideration. So the next question. But you're saying it's a very important one. Really?
So I drive over from We'll start with that. Things that could be improved. Things that are valuable and important to the community.
Do something with our gym.
You need to put an orange dot on that.
You could play a more active role at the center. Is that a fair way of saying what you're doing? In other words, that could be one of the hubs of activity. And yeah. The old library's here. Yeah.
our local mayor's not that's problematic.
Yeah, you can have.
Something. I know that a lot of people that come in now for events at the school, there are a couple of Airbnbs.
Let's probably get a feel for where we are in the process now. We are talking with folks here tonight. We want to hear from other folks in the community. The questions that you were asked tonight are on the project website. So folks, you hold up that card for me, that little business card. There's a little business card. If you didn't get one, they're out on the table on the way in. That tells you where the project website is. So tell your friends and your kids and your parents and your co-workers to go to the website and answer these same questions. It's great to have you here tonight, give a face-to-face discussion, but it's also great to add to that, add another layer of feedback on that. So go to the website and make sure people take that survey and add to the insights you've given us tonight. We're going to continue to do our homework. You've probably identified some challenges for us that we don't have the answer to, right? That's part of what this process is about, sort of learning together as a group. So we will look at state level programs, we'll look at data, information, anything that we can get our hands on to help us think further, more strategically about the questions that you've raised tonight. Over the course of the summer, we're going to continue to reach out to the community. If you have ideas for us about places that we can go where we might capture some great feedback, we'll go there, right? If we can make it, we'll be there. So let us know if there are opportunities or groups that you think should be engaged. They can call us, we can go to them, we can go to those events, they can go to the website. We're trying to provide as many contact points as we can into the project. So again, we're starting high up. What do we have? What's wrong? What's challenging? What could be improved? That's where we are right now. And then we're going to really start getting into the work and trying to answer those questions and come up with some strategies, whether they be something that we can take on immediately or something that's going to take a little time to unfold. We'll have, both of those certainly at the end of this plan. So with that, let's hear a little bit about what you talked about. Jeremy, can you tell us about these challenges and opportunities related to a transformation opportunity in your group?
Indeed. So I think when we were talking about the biggest transformation that was needed, it revolved around the traffic, but then we decided we didn't want to get hung up on the traffic. So we also talked about the biggest transformation needing to be just the notion of bringing activity to the center of town. So our challenges and opportunities, I would say that the two main themes, one was Wheaton College, and that's on both sides. So the opportunity is that you have a single landholder that has a lot of the land that's along these corridor areas, and as a result, they could be a catalyst for change. You're not trying to convince 100 separate, smaller landowners that something needs to happen here. If you could get Wheaton College on board, you could probably go a pretty long ways. Now that's also a challenge, because if they say, yeah, pass, half of your town suddenly is off of the, out of the run, which would be a challenge. We think that they were identified by a lot of folks as being a real asset in the community. So I think that's a good thing. It sounds like there's a fairly good relationship there. The other big thing was the traffic and the character of the roads that are out there now. So the fact that there is a lot of traffic is a challenge, especially as it relates to pedestrian activity, to be able to get through town safely and feel like it's somewhere you want to be. It's also a challenge that those are state roads, there's no on-street parking. We know there's improvements being made to things like sidewalks, but it would be great to tame them even further. And it's tough when you as a town wishes that were the case, but you need to convince the state to do so. So that's a challenge. The opportunity is that kind of traffic brings a lot of visibility. So that if we could get new retail there, or the retail that is there, or the events that might happen, people passing through town is a good thing. You might not like all of the cut-through traffic, but that cut-through traffic suddenly sees, oh, there's a brewery here, we should come down here this weekend and check it out. So again, I think the college and the traffic were the two biggest issues we saw, and we kind of talked about them on both sides of opportunity and challenge.
Anybody from the group want to add to that, or? All right. Sounds like Jeremy reported well, nodding heads. All right, Jeff.
I'm a volunteer.
Yes.
Hi, I'm not Jeff, I'm Dave. So, community side, we talked about Wheaton in the same way you did, that it's actually on that property, so if we can get them on board, it's easy to do. But if we can't, then we're in the same problem. There's an opportunity to talk about how Mansfield changed their post office into, I guess it's an art center now. So there's precedent that we can go and look at and learn from there. And we had an opportunity that we know that the industrial park is coming up on 123 and Leonard Street. And we thought that that might be an opportunity to put the facility there. When we talk about barriers in general, we talked about there's a lot of civic facilities in this area already. So there's limitations on where we can put these kinds of mixed-use buildings. The historic district is obviously going to need to be contended with. The lack of public sewer and water in that area is something that's underway, something that's being addressed, but if we want to do something soon, there's a challenge there. And there was at least a perception that the town can be unfriendly to businesses and can make it a little bit difficult for them to come in, so we wanted to be able to work through that. The last one that I'll call out, we had a few other ones out there, but there's also, we just want to make sure there's enough demand for the space that we create. The last thing we want to do is create space that sits vacant and becomes a little bit more of a blight than the kind of vital, vibrant center that we'd be looking for.
Hey, thanks, Dave. All right, Craig, what about your group?
So our biggest transformation was the primary intersection to be reconfigured in the village center. Challenges associated with that is that the town needs to use their money to re-engineer the intersection, and then the state will take it up for consideration. There also needs to be, I guess there's a private residence in the way as well, which would improve the flow of traffic at that intersection. And I guess there's a perception, resident perception that you can't relocate the town center or the gazebo to make that happen as well. So some folks are thinking maybe changing the perception of the town common, and if it were relocated would be okay. And then opportunities, the only opportunity we came up with was that it would create a sense of place that residents are striving for. Do you guys, anybody from the group want to add to that, or?
No, you summed it up.
Very good. And what about our final group here?
So we talked a little bit about a lot of opportunities in the area, but I think what we settled on as the greatest opportunity was potential for streetscape transformation. So lighting and streetscape, signage, public art could be a real transformation in that area. We also talked about the challenge of not having a master plan and how this may deter potential businesses from coming because there isn't a grand vision for the area. So if we were to have a master plan, that would be an opportunity to bring economic development to the area. It would make it more purposeful, and as far as the streetscape, we felt that there's a precedent being set by Wheaton right now. There's some wonderful signage and walkable streetscape in that area. So if we were to continue that kind of treatment and potentially have outdoor seating for restaurants and a greater draw to that area, just making sure that you have a view of something more than just the street.
Well, that concludes our program, everybody. Thanks for coming out again. There may be a few straggling munchkins on the way out. Don't leave them behind. And please, just again, I can't say it enough, so I'll say it one more time. Go to the website because we are very meticulously going to document these discussions that we had tonight. We're going to put them back out so that your friends who couldn't make it here this evening will understand what we talked about. And this is step one in what promises to be a very engaging, very interesting process. And we hope to see you as we continue along. Jeremy?
Has the next step, like a date, been settled, or is that a good thing to keep an eye on the website for?
Keep an eye on the website. Thank you, Jeremy. Thanks, everyone. One more time on the website is nortonmavillage.com.